This is Seasons of Discontent with your hosts Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.
Welcome to Seasons of Discontent, Season 9, Episode 20, brought to you by Rick Snyder's Washington on social media, and I'm Rick Snyder.
I'm Matt.
And we're back discussing all things Washington sports and life as part of my mighty social media. So go watch YouTube or elsewhere.
The mighty Rick Snyder empire.
There you go. So, all right, we always pick the game right off so people can go away afterwards. And I'm going to go Washington 24 because I think they can score points. New York Giants 17. That's probably too many for the Giants, but I can't pick them to win by bazillion, and they are 10-point favorites.
I really want to pick the Giants just because they were so unprepared against the Giants the first game. But they can't lose to Danny DeVito. I know his name isn't Danny DeVito. I'll just be different. Washington 27, New York 14.
There you go. I'm covered. I mean, last week the Giants were 17-point dogs to Dallas. I thought, oh God, I can't give 17 points, but Dallas could crush them, and they did, did. So much for that. But man, I hate giving big numbers like that. 10, Washington can score. At least they can score. They can't stop anybody, it seems, but they can score.
Yeah, and let's not forget, I mean, the Giants traded away a major piece in their defensive line, and we saw him against Seattle last week, Leonard Williams. They've been really bitten by the injury bug. I mean, Saquon is still Saquon, but they have no offensive line. When did we hear that before? I don't know. I know the Eagles games, you and I have talked over the years, the Eagles games are usually the wacky games against the Washington franchise and Philly. Those are the wacky games. The Giants games are getting to be a little wacky too. I don't know. I really don't like giving them that big number, but like you said, I mean, Washington can score at will. They hit these, they come out hot and then they kind of lull in the second and third quarters, and then the fourth quarter rings and it's like, hey, we need to score some points, and they can. That was a beautiful throw. We didn't talk about it on the show on Tuesday. That was a beautiful throw to De'Ami Brown for a touchdown to tie the game. Shocker. Joey Slye missed that extra point, and we all knew that's going to bite him in the butt.
Yeah, the one to Brian Robinson on the run, he did two of them, but the first one was, those were both awesome throws on there. It's just the Giants games as a series, I'd have to label them as the tough losses. Mm-hmm. It always seems like it's a tough loss to Dallas. So I didn't quite, that's where they had a 2-pointer they were trying to figure out too. I don't know. So after Sunday's games, I've checked out what Sweat and Young did in their new cities. And they did exactly what I thought they'd do. They played pretty well because now they're money motivated. Although, Montez just signed a big deal. So, he got his money. Chase is going to go chase his money. I knew new venue, short time, players always do their best right away. And then they go back to whatever. But since they've been gone in 2 games, Washington has 1 sack and 6 quarterback hits. So people wonder what's the matter with the secondary. Well, the front 4 aren't helping them out at all. Allen's foot, I think, bothers him more than he admits. I don't know what's up with Deron Payne, but he's not getting it done by and large on a consistent basis. And, Hill and Smith-Williams, they play okay, but they're really reserves. They're not your starters. God, could they actually spend the first rounder on a defensive end pass rusher next year? I think fans would.
Fans will hit the fan because they need an offensive lineman. That is priority number 1. And then in the second round, they need an offensive lineman. And in the third round, they need an offensive lineman. Those are their keys. I did read something interesting the other day. I know they're apparently Washington tried out a former teammate at Alabama of Allen and Payne's. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Rams. I can't remember his name, but he's a defensive lineman. So, maybe they're trying to rebuild the Bama wall. Realistically, I didn't really pay too much attention to Chase playing for San Francisco. I was really turned off by the comments that he made when he left. You know, maybe it's because he was actually speaking some truth and I didn't want to hear it, about how unorganized it was. But, he made it seem like when he showed up in San Francisco, Joey Bosa is going to lead him to the promised land, and him and Joey Bosa are going to get 40 sacks combined like he was supposed to do with Montez. I don't know. Chase is going to get paid in the offseason. It's not going to be by San Francisco because they don't have the cap room. But, yeah, I don't know. I just have a odd feeling with San Francisco. It's just they're trying to buy a championship, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so the pass rush ratio once again was about 80-20. I think in the last 2 games it's been about 75 pass, 25% run. The running backs did great as receivers, big time. I have no problem with that, but you cannot throw the ball 75% of the time in a game that you have a lead for most of it. Both games they had the leads. It's not like you're down like the Chicago game when you have no choice but to do this. I don't understand what Bieniemy's quite doing here. Are they trying to just make Hal prove that he really is the franchise guy next year? Do they have so little faith in everything else? The offensive line's doing a little better. They have a couple good running backs. But, man, you can't do this because everybody drops back. If you're going to throw 3/4 of the time, the defense can cheat.
Yeah, and Pete Carroll mentioned that in an interview on Tuesday. He was talking about how in the fourth quarter when they started running the ball and they were running the ball effectively, he was kind of taken aback by it, and his team had to adjust, because they came out and ran it 4 or 5 times, and Brian Robinson had success running the ball. He was getting 4 or 5 yards during that series, and then they just turned back to the pass. I don't know. We know that Bieniemy offensives in Kansas City have always kind of been pass happy, and they never really had a standout running back during his tenure there. It was more, hey, we're going to rely on Alex Smith. We're going to rely on Patrick Mahomes. So I don't know. Maybe that's just something he's not used to having, or he knows deep down inside that this offensive line can't pass block, or can't run block. They can't open holes. We saw it on Sunday against Seattle. Those Seattle running backs had giant holes to run through. Our offensive line can't do that.
Yeah. So if you could change one starter on this team, I would go with Cornelius Lucas over Wiley. I think Lucas is a nice player.
I would put anybody over top of David Mayo.
Who are you going to put?
Give me the kid that they signed off the street, Jabril Cox.
Okay. Well,
he's got to be better than David Mayo. David Mayo can't cover turkey, lettuce, tomatoes, nothing. That guy sucks. And I'm sure he's a nice guy. And I'm sorry, David, if you watch this show, but you suck. And I'm sure it's Del Rio putting him in bad position. There's no way that David Mayo should be covering DK Metcalf or the other guy, number 16. He shouldn't be covering a wide receiver. I get it. He should be covering tight ends and trying to sack the quarterback. So it's obviously scheme, but yeah, David Mayo, man, you need to go back to special teams, brother.
So Jahan Dotson, people have been asking all the time what's up with him. Years ago, it used to be the rookies hit the wall around week 11 because they played 10-game college schedules. And you could see it every year that around 11, 12, they were getting tired because they weren't used to it. Well, now colleges play up to 15 games, and a lot of them are playing 12, 13. So it's a little more extended. So I don't think that's what it is. But, his stats are about on par for last season. There's only so many balls, but he's dropped a few. He's got the yips, which is weird. And I don't know what is going on there. He's got to better pull it out quick. He played almost every snap, and they only threw it to him twice, and he didn't catch either one. Dropped one. I don't know. It's a strange thing for him because he's known for such good hands. Yeah. And then we don't see him do anything. And I just think it's a temporary thing. He of the Ron's 4 draft first rounders, he's the best one.
Well, yeah, and honestly, he could be looking over his shoulder. A guy like Byron Pringle came in with Bieniemy, knowing Bieniemy's offense, and we've seen him make some pretty good catches. They claimed Jamison Crowder off the street, and the guy came in and caught 100 yards when Curtis Samuel was hurt. Caught 1 or 2 touchdowns against in that game. He's got, obviously Hal has, a connection with De'Ami Brown from college, and we saw that nice throw that he had to tie the game in Seattle. I mean, there's obviously a relationship there. I mean, maybe it's just him looking over his shoulder. Maybe he's got the yips. Maybe he's just, whatever you want to call it. I know one person that is really not making any case to stay on this team is Curtis Samuel. I mean, he's injured again. He's really not effective. They tried him as Deebo Samuel, and that didn't work. So I don't know. Maybe next year, if Curtis is gone and Dotson is elevated to the 2, and maybe his mindset will change. I don't know. But realistically, I mean, he needs to be in the slot. He needs to be a slot receiver.
Yeah, Samuel is a free agent after the season. You have a new coaching staff come in. I don't expect them to re-sign him.
No.
But is it time to cut the cheese? I kind of wonder, man. I wrote he was dancing with the devil on Sunday because he had at least 2 high snaps to the punter who went up to get him. He had a bad one for one of the kick attempts where the Trustway pulled that one up real quick. I mean, Trustway's the greatest. Now he's saving the other guy. But that was 3 that I can remember. He had 10 snaps, and they asked Ron about it, and Ron says, well, by the end of it, he was doing fine. Man, it's not like this team's going to lose a Super Bowl bid off of that. It's not a Dan Turk kind of deal, but I would be looking at snappers again. Something's wrong. He started off poorly, then got over it, and then here it is again.
Well, that's a guy that's never going to grasp with the fans. They drafted that guy to cut Nick Sundberg when Nick just wanted a raise, a $500,000 raise, and they wouldn't give it to him. Sundberg was a fan favorite. Yeah, I mean, hey, if you're not performing, you need to be. They need to at least try other guys out. That's one of the things that Rivera's never done in this tenure. He never brings in guys for competition. How many years did we beg him to bring in a kicker just for competition? It took them getting hurt to bring in other kickers.
Yeah. All right. So Rick, the movie reviewer, has a special note here at the end of our show. My wife had me go to the Meg Ryan new movie. And I thought, I remember Meg Ryan. She was cute. They were funny. You've Got Mail. She had a lot of good rom-coms. Well, this one, I think it's called What Happened Next. It's about her and another guy, David Duchovny, I believe. They're in an airport. They're stuck there forever. And the movie is about 1:15 of them arguing over whose fault it was they broke up, and about 15 minutes of settling things and going on their separate ways. I mean, Matt, I'm sitting in the movie theater thinking, oh, my God, they haven't stopped arguing in an hour. I was like, Meg, go find a love story. Find Tom Hanks and reunite there. This is your movie back? It was like, wow. So, guys, if you think, oh, Meg Ryan, okay, it'll be bearable. No, it wasn't.
It sounds like a Hallmark movie.
It was so bad that I told my wife, I get to pick where we're going for dinner. You don't get to do it. We're going to somewhere I know you don't want to go, and I do. So we did. We went to Famous Dave's, which I like.
Yeah.
So that's how bad that movie was. So don't get suckered into that one. But there's going to be some good ones, though. The Hunger Games prequel, I want to see that. And Napoleon, there's a movie on Napoleon. That's why I told my wife, we're going to Napoleon next. I want to watch some cannons fire.
I still want to see the Oppenheimer movie. I haven't got a chance to watch that yet.
That's a pretty wild one about that. The guy does a nuclear bomb and then spends the rest of his life trying to stop nuclear weapons. I heard it was, I just thought it went, they liked it, but they're big into physics. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if the rest of us would understand it. But the movie season's finally coming. The actor strike is over. Might be something on TV worth watching.
Yeah, besides reality shows and game shows.
Yeah, it's just, Survivor's an hour and a half because they got nothing to do.
Right.
Sure, go ahead, keep going. I'm just glad you can just come watch this show, I guess, over and over, and there you go.
There you go.
All right, so Giants game Sunday, and then Cowboys on Thursday, and then a nice little break. Still haven't gotten to the bye yet. That's 3 games from now.
No.
We finally get to do that. Phew, it's a long season, and it's going to get longer by the end. So, all right, well, we're out of here for once. I'm Rick Snyder.
Thanks for listening to Seasons of Discontent with your hosts Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.